Hi, welcome back to Deep Images, and we have a really special episode for you guys. We are going to do an exclusive interview that we've been wanting to do for quite a while, and it is with Tonjia Atomic. If you guys know her name, it's because she offered her music to us as our closing song. So if you guys have heard that, I highly recommend it. But going down your resume or your descriptors, I'll try to boil it down, and you can tell me if I miss anything. So, actress, filmmaker, musician, songwriter, writer, podcaster, makeup artist, martial artist. Did I forget some major ones?
I don't think, I mean, I'm also an antiques dealer, but
Okay, okay, cool.
um, but with a caveat, I actually haven't done martial arts for many years,
Okay.
unfortunately. And makeup artist was I by desperation, I guess. I have needed to do some makeup in the past for different projects and have had to step in and also I've done this to friends of mine, made them step in to help do makeup.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens. So when you have the very small productions, you have to wear many hats, I guess. I was also thinking of you are doing kind of occasional seminars of sorts on YouTube.
Yeah, I enjoy doing my own makeup and I enjoy I guess different aspects of the makeup uh that's out there, different techniques and different kinds of makeup out there. And so I am interested. I guess I'd be a makeup enthusiast slash
Okay.
reluctant artist.
Yeah, I watched the one on the creature from the Black Lagoon makeup yesterday. That was pretty funny. Golly.
Oh yeah, I love that collection.
Okay, so I'll try to kind of just go back to the beginning, and if you want to veer off or have anything in particular you want to, direction you want to go in the middle of all that, that's fine. Um, So, a real basic question. So what started you on this creative path? Like, how young were you? What was your first time you knew you had an affinity for the arts of some kind? What did you have the most affinity for first? And when did you decide to just do it yourself?
Well, I've always had an interest in film and television. Some of my earliest memories are film and television. My parents had a black and white rabbit ear old TV, the kind that you went up to turn the dial by hand, the
Same
manual
here.
kind. And I used to stand in front of the TV. There's actually a picture of me. It's super funny. An old like square Kodak kind of picture of me standing in front of the TV, really close to it, all by myself as a toddler. And um, and I remember seeing that picture as an adult and being like, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
um, but my dad loved movies a lot, and both my parents were really interested in music, and they both sang, and they would sing around the house and sing at church and
Wow.
listen to the radio, and then I just always had that around me. And they also would take us to different, like the science center, different museums, different cultural things and cultural activities. And so
Hmm.
that was always a part of my childhood. But I remember always wanting to get involved in music somehow or acting. That was my thing when I was little. I just wanted to act. And I never thought I could write a story. I never thought I knew how or had any stories in me, let alone direct anything. Um, it was more about being a performer.
Right.
That was something I was always interested in. And I always heard music in my head, and I could hear different parts of music in my head
Hmm.
when I was a kid, and different like instrumentation and things. I didn't know what it was except, mimicking stuff that I heard.
Yeah.
Um,
Or your
you know,
songwriting in your head.
yeah, I did that since I was real little, and
Hmm.
we'd go on long car trips, and I would sit and just like imagine music and all
Hmm.
the different parts of music, and sometimes I could hear the harmonies together, and sometimes I'd have to kind of hear them separately and try to put them together in my head. But I think also, growing up with my parents doing choir, um, and there was always music in the house. My sister played piano, And I started taking piano lessons when I was 4 because I
Wow.
begged. Yeah, I begged to. And I took piano lessons up through high school. But it was in high school when I found out that my instrument was actually guitar because even though I enjoyed playing piano, I enjoyed the music. There was something about it that I didn't quite take to ever, and I never got really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I could get better and advance at it, but I never got good at it for like how long I'd taken lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, and I never could figure out how to sight read. And that I can read music, but just be able to read and play. I learn music by ear.
I do too, but I can't read at all.
Yeah, it's a total different thing.
Yeah.
I can hear something and mimic it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but when I look at the notes, I can play it, but I don't know if that's exactly what's intended or not. And
Right.
it's to play it without practicing several times and learning it several times first.
And you have
Uh,
to, if you're in a band, you have to play with people who can pick them up by ear too, because if they're only into the notes or reading, then you can't tell them right offhand that your chord, your progression is like an A, D, E or whatever, so they can find it on their guitar. And I've had to try to do that before, and like having to translate that to music theory, it was hard for me anyway.
Yeah, I've learned there's different kinds of musicians.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some people that really know theory really well. They know their all the keys and everything. And I feel like a lot of people that play jazz are good at that.
Oh yeah.
You play this song, but actually change it to this key, and they can do that. And that's not really the kind of musician I am.
Hmm.
I like I said, I can hear something and mimic it, like play by ear, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, and so sometimes you have to learn each other's language or try to figure out how to communicate. But that's when, like, the best people to play with are people that you can be on the same page with. And then sometimes that magic happens where you don't even really have to talk about things.
Yeah.
Um, the other person just kind of knows.
You just jam.
Yeah, and that's rare, but that does happen. And I've been in those situations, and that's a nice time.
That's good. When did you first play guitar, like as out live or recording or in a band, or what were your first experiences with that?
Well, I started taking lessons when I was in junior high.
Hmm.
Think I must have been 14. And I really took to it well. And I think part of it was because you've got one hand doing the notes and the other hand is doing the strumming. And it's
Hmm.
the two different things going on at once. And that just makes more sense in my head than to try to, when you're playing piano, you're trying to match everything
Yeah, it
in
goes over my head.
time. Yeah.
Here's the
And
guitar.
yeah, my hands just don't want to do it. I just want to be doing, the two different things makes more sense in my mind, or it's easier for me naturally, I guess.
Right.
But I really took to it pretty well, and really quickly after I started taking lessons, I was in a review of the students and my teacher were all in this review at the local state fair, and that was the first time I played live in front of an audience, which was kind of crazy because it's a huge audience at the state fair. But that's
Were you
what I
playing
did.
solo?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I played classical gas solo when I was like 14.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad you weren't traumatized or anything by that experience. I would have been.
I don't know how. I mean, I probably pick it up again, but I haven't played that song probably since then, so I don't even know how to play it at this time. But that was the first thing, yeah. And then, um, I've just played on my own, wrote songs on my own, and then I did have a first band in my last year of high school, and we played one show,
Okay.
and thought that went pretty well. We did like a couple covers and some of my songs, and then we wrote like a group song. Um, and then I didn't really do anything with music for several years, probably after that. I mean, my life was sort of, I don't want to say tumultuous, but I never knew where I was going to be, or what I was going to be doing, in a lot of ways for a long time. I went to school, I went to college, and actually in college, this is a good segue because when I went to college, I went to general studies to get like a arts associate degree. And while I was taking just whatever class, like I just picked a bunch of classes I thought sounded interesting. But while I was there, I found a film program there,
Mm-hmm.
film and video program. And I was like, I always wanted to act, but maybe I could, do my own thing, make my own stories, do my own thing. And I want to just try it and kind of see where that goes
Mm-hmm.
because I get interested in television and movies. And also, my interests are such that I love, like lowbrow comedy. I love really independent, no budget stuff all the way up to, like experimental art, French New Wave.
Do you I was going to ask you this later, but on that uh subject, do you feel there is or should be or shouldn't be a distinction or red line between like highbrow or art house kind of cinema and like lowbrow or camp kitsch, and do they inhabit the same universe in your mind? You judge them equally on their own terms, or how do you liken that? You kind of answered part of it just now, but
My absolute favorite kind of stuff ends up being highbrow plus lowbrow. like like comedy that's dumb, but you could tell the whoever's writing it is really smart
mm,
and it's dumb smart. Kind of, I don't know how else to describe it, but stuff where there's like highbrow references, but it's
mm-hmm.
just like if it's done well, I that's one of my favorite kind of genres, I guess.
Well, you can kind of tell the difference between whether the writer is stupid or the writer's smart and the characters are stupid, and the writer's in on that with you that the characters are stupid. Um, and I saw some of that in some of your stuff too. I thought not stupid, but their flaws, were like they're obvious to us watching, and I'm sure to you writing and performing. So there's that irony, but to the characters, they're just totally oblivious.
Yeah, I never thought about it, but yeah, that's definitely comes out in some of my work, sure. Yeah. I feel like if I if I like something and it has value, it's not necessarily um maybe critically seen as a important work, but I feel like there's some things that get missed because they are of a type of genre. Like people used to do that with horror,
Oh yeah.
and I think in some ways they still do dismiss horror as a second class genre, even though it can deal with a lot of interesting and difficult things and also difficult subjects to explore in any different genre.
Hmm.
I didn't want to see a drama played out with some of the subjects that horror can talk about in a
Yeah.
fantasy.
By that time, when you were getting into that, who were there any particular artists in film that were influencing you or that were kind of shaping your direction? Like anyone in specific, their work or specific films, or you know?
Well, I had big love for French New Wave.
That's good.
Oh, sorry, that's my cat.
Okay.
um, uh, let me think. So like any of the big kind of art arty kind of directors out there, if you throw their name out, like I love
Godard.
I like Godard, but not I feel like it's not 100% like on my table, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate it.
Hmm.
Like Cocteau, I love Cocteau.
Of
I love
course.
Truffaut, Fellini. I have huge love for I don't know if you've seen Wild Strawberries,
Actually,
Bergman's
that's
novel.
a Bergman I have not seen all the way through.
Oh, but I love Bergman is like a
Yeah.
huge of mine. I like people that push the envelope with making content that is like subconscious come out to the forefront, like David Lynch,
Surrealism.
surrealism. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said so before.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like John Waters. I love his humor
Yeah.
and pushing the envelope, and also kind of, you know, John Waters is like known as being like the filth guy and everything, but his movies really have an undercurrent of friendship and
Yeah.
camaraderie, and there's a lot of love there. So it's kind of funny, but yeah. So as far, and we talked about this last time, but as far as directors that I feel like I'm actually the most influenced by would be Cocteau and Mario Bava.
Okay. So what about them do you have you taken with you as far as that was helpful or, you know?
I definitely see like when I try to look and analyze my own work, which I don't really do that often, but um I see a lot of the simplistic special effects
Hmm.
um Cocteau use that were really effective.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've used some of that. I've kind of learned from some of that, and like I don't know if you've ever seen my short film Companion. It is on YouTube.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that later, actually. Yeah,
But I think
definitely.
if you watch that, you would see a lot of Cocteau influence, and especially in the special effects. The reason why I made that is I have a love of fairy tales, folk tales,
Hmm.
and fairy tales, and that's why I made that film. But I felt like what would be most effective in the effects would be to keep them simple.
Yeah,
Uh, and then as far as Mario Baba, I think some of those lighting schemes influence some of the lighting schemes that I like to use.
yeah. His look has influenced everybody. It's amazing. When did you get into him?
I don't even remember. I just watched, I'm sure my dad has watched some of his films, and I, I grew up. My dad watched a lot of cult films, so I grew up seeing some of them, and sometimes, I'd sneak out down the hallway and watch TV over, like kind of sneak in the doorway and just kind of try to watch TV at night. I used to get in trouble for doing that all the time, and I'd have to go back to bed. But I remember seeing some Hammer films that way, and other cult films that way. And yeah, I was always interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, yes, I was influenced because I had it around me,
Mhm.
but it was like as soon as I saw some of the, more creepy kind of stuff, I was like, oh, that's me. That's for me.
Right.
So
What path from there did you had formal education in film through these programs, and then you were also doing music on the side, or how did that? Oh, you said you put music aside for a bit.
yeah, when I went to film school, I didn't do any music. I just really delved into film. I mean, it was really immersive and very
Mhm.
intense. And I worked part-time at a theater, at a movie theater,
Yeah, cool.
but I didn't work very many hours because school was really difficult and took up a lot of my time. And so I really wasn't doing anything else but my projects at school and focusing on school. And I did really well in the film program, and it really resonated with me. And for the first time I really felt like, other than with music, which I feel like you can do on your own, that can be like personal thing.
Hmm.
But with film, you really need to. It's hard to do on your own, I guess I
Yeah,
should say.
yeah,
Have to. It
definitely.
is difficult to do on your own and to do it well. And it was the first time that I ever was in like a classroom setting or a larger group setting where I felt like this is what I want. This is it. I
Mm.
really felt like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I have a passion for this. I'm good at this, even though I was learning, and that's one thing I do feel still is I'm still learning. I
Oh
haven't
yeah.
worked on enough projects to really hone my craft. I feel like nothing that has come out really says this is my vibe. This is my masterpiece. I think so far my masterpiece would be Monmouth's Returns. I think it's the best thing I've done.
Okay.
I know I can do more
Yeah.
um, if given the chance, because I feel like I'm still learning and it's still kind of new to me, even though I've been doing it for so many years. Um,
Do you feel
But yeah,
like funding is something that holds you back from achieving those things,
yeah,
or
completely.
it
Completely.
does? Okay, yeah, I feel.
If I were in a spot, well, if I had like a ton of money, I could just, you know, spend on a film. I would definitely immerse myself more, do more projects, do more difficult, complicated things. I feel like I want to push myself with each project, although I don't have the opportunity to do that. Um, since Monos Returns, I've done a lot of projects where I just want to be working on something.
Mhm.
Um, you know, they may not be as challenging as other, as I would want. Um, the pandemic has a lot to do with that too. It was kind of a challenge just to keep doing projects, which I did,
Hmm.
but it was a challenge to keep doing projects um, that during then. And I feel like just now people are just starting to come, like filmmaker friends that I know are just starting to come out of that and starting to do projects again more seriously.
Hmm.
And so I'm looking forward to doing some new projects that hopefully I'll have the opportunity to do. Um, you had asked me what I had done out of school when I was out of school, and it did take me many years after I was done with school to do anything with my degree because, well, for one, I live in Seattle and there's not a lot of um, not a ton of commercial stuff up here except for um, like industry type stuff. Like there's like in-house Microsoft training films and things like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
There is stuff like that up here, but there's not a lot of creative stuff, which that's really what I want to be doing.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, yeah, there's a few indie things here and there, and I've been involved in some projects that aren't my own up here, but
Do you ever
for me,
do things other than like if you're not directing, you're working on someone else's project, acting, and then do you do any technical things? You mentioned makeup earlier. Do you do whatever you kind of get a chance to do to help out on projects, or someone might need your help on a project?
yeah, mostly I've done acting when I've helped on other people's projects, but I've also helped co-direct people that either it's their first time. Like I worked with people that work on live theater,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's like, oh, this is my first project that I'm doing on camera, even though they're used to performing or putting together, directing, whatever on stage.
Yeah.
And so I will often help co-direct, or I don't want to say assistant direct because that's a different that's a totally different job when you're working film, but assist them in their directing if they're doing that for the first time. um and I mean, I've done it all. I've run sound for a few projects. um Lighting is not something I feel I've done it, and I'm honestly, I'm not bad at it, but it's not something I feel super comfortable doing because it's really, I mean, it's a technical and it's an art form in and of itself.
Okay.
And I feel shaky about it. Like, I feel like I know I've seen people do such a good job that I don't feel like I should be doing that. But I know how to do it, and I've done it for projects as well. And I've run camera for other people too. And yeah, so I have worn many, many hats.
But on your own productions, for the most part, you've done all the technical stuff yourself, would you say, or a fair large amount? Like directing,
It
acting,
depends.
editing, shooting. I mean, how many? I saw some credit, a couple of your things that you were pretty much had done almost everything. I forgot what it was, but
Yeah, it depends, like for like Plain Devil or Companion, and those are lower budget ones. Um, for when I do projects like that, where I can, you know, oh, I can get this project done pretty much myself. I'll do wear many hats at the same time. Like sometimes I will on one project that hasn't come out yet. I ran the lights and the camera and did the effects and did directed, wrote it, edited. everything all myself, um, except the makeup actually on that one. So
Okay.
my friend Rachel Jackson did the makeup on that one, but um, sometimes you just have to. I feel
Yeah,
like I would rather just focus on directing.
sure.
Um, but the school that I went to taught you everything. It taught you how to do sound design, do lighting, everything.
Oh, that's good.
How to like wind a cable, like he learned everything in that class. So so I can do everything. So sort of jack of all trades, but my strengths are in the writing and directing, I think, and acting, I think too.
Okay. So there's a couple of works I want to ask you about that I'm just curious about and that I think I responded to and I think would be tangential to the kind of things we cover on our channel. Um, so before you made any movies, you were making albums, right? Of music,
Not
correct?
well. So here's how it's kind of gone. Like after I came out of film school, like I said, there wasn't a lot for me to do, and I would try to do projects on my own or um get together with friends or whatever. And it was just, like there was nothing that I could just do. Like I want to direct feature narrative films of my own creation. There wasn't like a path for that I could just do.
Hmm.
And I ended up getting involved with music again. And I had met some friends who were playing music, and we were in a band. We were in this like huge band where there was a bunch of us, and we would all break apart into different groups, and we would play shows and things. And like that didn't have longevity because it wasn't just one core band with the
Okay.
focus on that. So, but we did that for probably a couple of years, and then after that, I was in a electronic, like a synth band called and
Oh
we did a
yeah, I saw some of those.
yeah, and I was able to use my film background because we would make our own music videos sometimes, and um, or just do little film projects here and there, and so I was able to do a little bit with that, and but then focus mostly on the music. So I did that for a few years as well, and then I was in another band after that band broke up, and that's where I met my husband actually in that band in Webelos, and it was one of the guys from the band had made his own band, and then we met through there, and really my husband and my dad were really supportive of my film and video um, passions,
Hmm.
and it was because of their support that I was able to get back into filmmaking, and I kind of had to make that decision. It had been probably 10 years since I'd been to school, and I'd only made projects here and there, and after that I just really was more focused on music and playing with bands and playing shows and things. And like I said, even though I did video projects here and there, I wouldn't have had time, to do a feature film or anything like that.
When you were
Um,
doing all the music and playing shows, what time frame are we talking about year wise?
so 2002 to 2010, probably
Okay.
somewhere where there. And I remember it was 2010 when I decided. I was like, I'm gonna focus on making films. I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna focus on making films. And like I said, my dad he bought me a camera, and my husband had bought me Adobe Suite because that's what I learned in school. I learned Adobe Premiere and After Effects a little bit, and because I had that support, I was able to, okay, I'm going to make my own projects. I'm going to do this. I have the equipment now that I never had before, and I'm going to do this. And I mean, it was a lot easier too because like when I started school, it was not the digital age yet. We were still using beta VHS film.
Hmm.
The first film I made was shot on 16 millimeter Clever Elsa, which was based on a fairy tale.
Oh well.
Um, so I mean that was a cool experience. I'm really glad I got to be there at the tail end. That stuff was all kind of going away.
The analog.
Um, yeah, but I got to learn how to do that,
Yeah.
and that was it. Like I never did it again, but I did get to learn how to do that, and also learned how to digitize video and film and edit non-linearly, which is where everything was going,
Yeah.
and where everything is now. And so
Computers.
I kind of got a a perfect opportunity to see both sides. And since since the digital has gotten better and better, that was also an opportunity for
Mhm.
me to be able to do projects because I knew how to do digital work and it was more easily accessible. So I would say it's my support of my family, but also the change in technology.
Yeah.
So in 2010 was really the linchpin, I guess, of me getting back into films, me getting serious about it, me getting my name out there, meeting people, and that was when I made Companion. That was like the first short film I did when I decided to get serious and get out there and put myself out there.
So what was that shot on, and what was this whole process? You wrote a fairy tale, kind of a folk horror. I guess it would now be called a folk horror now that that term is in common use finally. But I thought it was incredible actually.
Oh,
Yeah, what was the genesis of that? And I forgot what did you shoot it on? I couldn't really tell.
I honestly I shot it on I think it was like an 8 millimeter video camera. It was like a
Okay.
handheld um, video camera, I believe.
Wow.
Either that or it's a very one of the very early digital cameras.
Did it have film or it had tape?
Tape.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I believe I filmed that on tape still. And I don't think I had a digital camera at that point, but I could be wrong. I mean, this was many years ago now, so I could be wrong. But I think I digitized the tape and then edited that. But it was a project where I thought, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make a project, make a short film. I'm obsessed with fairy tales, folk tales, and I want to make something that has that feel and can maybe be, no pun intended, but like a companion piece to my first film, Clever Elsa, and have it be sort of they can sit together. I think they are different though. They're very different. But they both have the fairy tale feel to them. But I think they have different looks, different qualities. That was something that I wrote and thought I can make this, and then just did the work. Put the feelers out there to see who I could get to help and who could be in it, and where we could film and all the little logistical things, and just got out there and worked really hard and did it, and got it out in festivals and got noticed by some different people, and got into a few different festivals. And it was a really good experience for me because I was able to do a little bit of networking, get involved with some female horror filmmakers, and a lot of actually that was the film I should say that got me into the horror world because before that I didn't know I was doing horror.
Right.
I thought I was just doing weird stuff
Yeah.
or my own stuff. I didn't know how to categorize it.
Our horror is
But
so broad, but we don't know that when we first get into it.
right, yeah. Well, yeah, and I was thinking like, well, I'm not making like Friday the 13th,
Right.
so or Halloween, so I'm not doing horror. I'm making these fairy tale movies. What does that, where do those fit in the world? And I feel like maybe other people didn't know either, but once it was like, oh no, it's horror, then all of a sudden it made sense to a lot of people and kind of clicked and myself as well.
Folk
And I
horror
was like,
didn't have folk horror wasn't as far as I know, a phrase that was in wide currency in 2010. I mean,
no,
even though I enjoyed films like that, I mean, obviously The Wicker Man, we've all seen that, but and Onward, but it really wasn't until the last 5 years, and obviously that Severin box set and Shudder putting all those movies up for people to watch. that people finally went, oh wow, But I guess as far as the mainstream, maybe before that, The Witch or Vitch by Eggers maybe was the first time something clicked with a lot of people because I noticed right after that a lot of things influenced by that came out. But I was kind of feeling those vibes in your story, but yeah, more of a dark fairy tale. I felt as though uh I mean, I think for the resources you had, it's pretty amazing because I really felt like when you're doing those kind of scenes and you're trying to make them impactful, like you've got a great script, but can you pull it off visually? Can you pull off the makeup? Is it going to have what they used to call a unity of effect so that by the end, you're like, oh wow, the creature I thought was amazing, and then the devil guy himself, the way it was shot was amazing and really stood out compared to the kind of more lightly lit other stuff, just that darkness, that chiaroscuro. And I thought that actually made your production values like really way higher, just the way you lit that and shot that. And did you shoot that one?
I did shoot some of it myself. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, I think everyone should check that out. So that we'll talk about where to get your stuff at the end, but I really like the writing and I really like I like the strong will of the main character. She like held her ground for a long time with these critters that were assaulting her, besieging her. The ending though, I feel like spoilers. The ending did she capitulate to the demon more or less by going back there and being with him in the form of the husband?
Well, I think that she just didn't really have a choice at that point. Like if she was going to keep on and keep her child and have her life, that was really her only choice.
Hmm.
And I feel like she kind of, like you said, she's a strong character. It's like, yeah, she kind of knew what she had to do and just did what she had to do in order to get as good of an outcome as she could.
Hmm. But I felt like the end was powerful because it did seem kind of hopeless, but at the same time, she ended up where she started. Obviously, the shot you have, albeit it's with a different being, but she's living as it's the same life. Um, yeah. So I kind of had kind of a downer ending, but not in a bad way. I mean, I think that's some of those powerful films, not just horror, but just films in general. So after you did that, what was your next project or your next big thing on this kind of journey?
Because I know I did Plain Devil like a couple years after that. I know I did a lot of networking, a lot of writing.
Hmm. Did you feel
God,
like now you kind of owned being a writer? Did you feel like your imagination kind of opened up?
yes, actually. I think I mean I always wrote songs. I was
Hmm.
always a song from when I was little. I just never thought I could do a whole like a book or a movie or a play or anything because I just felt like that was much too long. I was used to writing, a couple minute songs kind of thing. Um, and yeah, and I started writing probably when I was in school because I did do my first film, Clever Elsa, at the tail end of when I was in film school. Um,
Can you tell me how to spell that movie? And is there a way to see it?
oh, Clever Elsa. It's on my YouTube channel. It's just
Oh,
clever, the word clever, and Elsa, like the name, like Born Free, like Elsa.
Clever Elsa.
Yeah.
Okay, I was hearing it as one word. I didn't.
Oh, okay. And it's a brother, the Brothers Grimm had it in their collection.
Okay.
And it was a story that always made me feel eerie. And I think it was told like almost as like a joke or a cautionary tale. But I never knew how to take it because I read a lot of fairy tales when I was young, which also I think was what got me interested in horror,
Hmm.
because a lot of them are really gruesome
Yeah, yeah.
and bloody, and there's a lot of revenge and
All the cool things.
yeah. But that one I never knew how to take, so I made it as a kind of more of a serious, darker tone. I made it a short film, which I'm not sure was the right approach. But it stands on its own. It's not really like how the original story was supposed to be, but it's its own thing, I guess. Um, but yeah, I started writing then and wrote a little bit here and there. But I think, yeah, 2010 was when I first started really writing. And I ended up doing Plain Devil not too long after, which is a feature film and a short but feature film.
So that's your
And
first feature film that you directed.
yes,
Cool.
there's Plain Devil, and then Walking to Linus was another one, which was around the same time. But I'm pretty sure I can't remember actually which came first, but I think Plain Devil came first. It might have been Walking to.
I haven't been able to see that Walking to Lena's. I mean, I saw your trailer, but
I
um,
could I could send you a link to it.
okay.
It is up
Um, I thought
for you.
Plain Devil, yeah, I've seen it a couple of times now, and it kind of harkens back to what you were saying earlier about the kind of comedies you liked and John Waters, and that's kind of the vibe I got, and that's really why I liked it a lot. Your main character, played by you, had this very nihilistic attitude, and was really trying to be tough, but sometimes didn't realize that she wasn't that tough. But you watching it, and you're like when she tried to talk to the woman tattoo artist about the Lord, and she didn't really know anything about Christianity, and they're like talking on two totally different currents, but we're getting it, and they're not understanding each other at all. So I thought that was pretty clever, but and I also like the names of the characters. How do you come up with names? Do they just occur to you? Because that's what happens to me, but I can't speak for other writers.
Well, so the funny thing about so I'll say a couple of things here. So first of all, I do love John Waters. I'm a big John Waters fan. I've seen almost all his movies. I've seen him speak several times.
Oh, cool.
He does a one man show. It's really funny and really heartfelt too. Um, but I would say that my film, even though I think, take some influence from him, of course, but I think that my idea from the film comes from an inspiration that is also an inspiration to him. I would say are the teenage delinquent films of the
Yeah,
50s.
right. Yeah,
I think, and those are to me, those are just campy and funny and silly, even though they're supposed to be cautionary tales to kids or maybe parents of
right.
teenagers, of like kids gone wrong or whatever. And I just find them so hilarious.
Me
And
too.
that was my inspiration for Plain Devil is and the whole name, it's like they're just plain devils, or like plain devil also means like plain,
Right.
like and I thought that was funny how they wanted to adopt that as their name. But the name for my character came from a dream. And I woke up from a dream and I can't remember exactly what was happening, but the one of the characters, either a character that was in it or we were trying to find this character, and her name was Bomber Hoshi. And I thought that was the funniest thing. And I wrote it down and I just had that with me for years. And I thought I'm going to use this someday because this is hilarious. And then it just dawned on me that so Plain Devil came to me one time when I was taking a shower, and I thought of the title Plain, because I was thinking, like Devil in a Blue Dress, or all the movies that from the 50s that were all about bad ladies, bad girls and stuff.
She
Yeah.
devils.
Yeah, and so Plain Devil came to me, and I thought how funny that would be if there was like a girl gang but very naive one,
Hmm.
and Plain Devil was their name, and then the name Einstein Vagina came to me,
Right.
and I thought, no, I have to write this. I have to write this. And then I thought, oh, this is where I can use Barbara Hoshi. I can use this name, and that name kind of informed the character for me too.
Hmm.
And so it all came together that way.
So it kind of grew out of you had a concept, but then the characters kind of helped you build your own
Yeah,
take on that concept.
for sure.
Interesting. I mean, it is interesting. Um, how was that received at
Really
the time?
well.
Okay.
It was
Good.
received really well. I got into several local film festivals, and I mean, it was a lot of fun. We one of the film festivals we actually had an artist make screen printed posters for it, and at the film festivals, at their urging, they wanted to allow that for some of the films, and we were one of the films that got picked. And then there was another festival where, um, I don't know, people just really loved the film a lot, and of course that
Good. Of
was validating. Made me feel good about that.
course.
I love to share that with the people that worked on the film and have them be part of the screening, have them be like, do question and answers and things, and make them feel good about their participation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like it's been something I've been able to share with different people and say, hey, this is kind of, something that I've done, an example of my work, and it's helped me get other work. So I'm really glad.
So how did the road to Manos, how did this happen?
It was the will of Monos.
I'm sure. I remember years ago you told me about it in a text, but I don't remember that. But
So Jackie Naaman Jones played Debbie in the Monos: The Hands of Fate, the
hmm
original one, and she was also there was another sequel that she was cast to replay her role of Debbie. And from what I understand, it was very chaotic. It never got finished, and it left the cast and other people that worked on the shoot very confused and um, disappointed. And one day, Jackie was talking to Brian Jennings, who I told you had passed away
yeah,
this last week,
sorry about
and
him.
she was talking to him, and he said, why don't we just do our own project? Why do we have to rely on this guy who's not involved?
This is in public domain.
Yeah. And so that got Jackie's wheels turning, and she started writing a book about her experience. It's a really good book.
Mm.
Um, she wrote is it like growing up with
Yeah,
mono
I
parents?
follow her. I'm friends with her on Facebook. I saw a couple of posts about her book. I didn't delve deep into it, but I thought that was kind of cool.
I would say anyone interested in the lore behind the scenes, this is it. This is a definitive book that will tell you all about it.
Oh wow.
But she was researching her book, and she wrote it from her perspective at the time. She was a little kid, so there was a lot of things that she didn't see going on, but she did a lot of research, reached out to people. She found a few people, through the failed sequel, but she found even more people through writing the book,
hmm
um, like like Nikki Mathis, who did the original music, was the original singer for the original music, and some of the original musicians um, she found, some of the crew. I mean, I guess there were only a couple people on the crew, and a couple more people in the cast. There was really only a few people that she either couldn't find or weren't wanting to be found. But she did interview a lot of people, and after that, she decided, hey, if we do want to make this sequel, if I do want to mount this myself and be the producer and get this going, I have all these people on hand that we can reach out to and
hmm
get involved. And so she was talking to people, trying to get things going. And so a friend of mine introduced me to her and was like, hey, this person could be your director.
Oh.
And I showed Jackie several of my other projects. I talked to her, and one of the things, like her and I get along super well. We're really similar in a lot of ways, and we just get along really well. And that was one, super positive thing for us to work together. And then the craziest thing was she had been talking to someone about being the director of photography, who was already a friend of mine that I already knew.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and she knew him separately than from me. And I was really surprised about that. And then she also knew someone that I'm really good friends with, Rachel Jackson. She also knew her and wanted her involved
She
in the.
did your puppets for companion.
Yes, she
Okay.
did.
I
Yeah.
remembered that name. Okay, go
Yeah. And Rachel actually introduced me to Manos: The Hands of Fate because she did a
ahead.
Manos: The Hands of Felt.
Oh
And and Rachel and I worked together at a live theater.
okay.
Um, and that's how we knew each other, and we had known each other for years.
Wow.
And so it was just kind of like Jackie doesn't even live in the same state that I do, and she ends up knowing two of my friends who were talking about working on this film together. I mean, it was just,
It was fate.
yeah, yeah. It was the hands of fate.
Right.
uh, and then that kind of stuff kept happening during the whole project. We started putting the project together, and we'd be like, hey, what did we think about, like, my friend Christopher, it was like, what do we think of, oh, Christopher helped us do the Kickstarter, because we did a Kickstarter for our project, and we raised $24,000, which is not really a lot, but we were able to really stretch it and do a lot of, like,
What year was this, do you think?
2016 is when we did Manos Returns.
What was it?
2016.
Okay, yeah, I already knew that. Yeah, okay, I remember the crowdfunding thing. Okay.
But yeah, Christopher helped us make the video for that
Hmm.
because he knew my friend Rachel, and then I met him, and then he tried out for the character of Jay and sent something into Jackie, and he got cast. And then turns out he used to live in El Paso, where the original film was shot,
Hmm.
and had met Jackie years ago in El Paso.
Hmm.
And it was just so strange that he found his way to our production through Rachel. I don't know. It was just so strange.
No,
Um,
I'm a firm I take a lot of stock in synchronicities. When they happen,
there,
I follow them. And
yeah,
usually good things happen.
yeah.
Usually.
I mean, I really feel like Monster Returns was one of those, people say lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
It really
absolutely.
was. All these people came together with all these connections that we didn't even know we had, and came together to do a project. We all put in. I mean, we did pay everyone, but for with the amount of money that we had, we couldn't pay people much. We gave
Hmm.
everyone a certain amount, and um, we had to figure out food and lodging and everything, and to do it like the most efficient and cheapest way. And it all just ended up, I mean, it ended up working out because we all worked really hard, but things ended up working out for us. And I really feel like it was lightning in a bottle, and that's how we got the project that we did.
And what did you shoot that on? That had a definitely, a much more pro look than the previous ones as far as
It's a digital, it's more of a pro digital camera, but it's like a lower end pro digital camera.
okay.
I think it's a Canon, but I don't know the model. It was Joe Sherlock's camera that we actually got for the film, but I can't remember the exact model of it. But it's not like a super high end one, but it is higher end than regular consumer, if that makes
Did you
sense.
digitally edit it yourself or with someone else on the crew?
So Derek Carey, who is a good friend of mine, he was our editor, and edited it. He edited it in a program where he could show us what he was doing along the way.
Hmm.
And so Joe Sherlock and I Joe Sherlock was the director of photography. We advised him. So we kind of told him what we wanted, and then he would send us back stuff. And he's so good. I mean, and he's intuitively good as an editor. And I mean, there were a few moments where we were like having to tweak things, but for the most part, he would send us back stuff that was like, oh yeah, we were totally imagining this,
Wow.
or oh, I see what he did there. He did something above and beyond what we were expecting, and he's just really good. And there were only a few parts where we were like, um, we need this to specifically do this. So can we do this? But then we would go back and forth like that, and we worked on it for so hard and so long. Like the post production took a year,
Okay.
which is a long time. But I mean, we all have day jobs, so we're all doing this at our own downtime, and we were really particular. I mean, I would never call myself a perfectionist, but when it comes to film projects, there's a way that I feel like, well, that's not quite right yet.
All right, of
There's
course.
end product that's it's got to be closer to. So we worked on the editing, audio editing, sweetening, adding the music, getting color corrected, all that stuff, all the post-production stuff. Took about a year. But I only advised. I didn't do any of that stuff myself because I wanted, well, we all wanted professional people who we saw samples of their work and we knew they were good, to be able to take that on.
To do the post production, you mean? Okay. Wow. When did this premiere and what was the reaction? I mean, I already know, but for the people watching.
It premiered in, I think it was 2018 when it finally premiered on screen. And we had a premiere at the Crypticon convention, horror convention in Seattle. And Brian and Wanda, his wife, came out for that. And so did Diane Murray. She plays Maggie, the mom. And I think Nerdia was not, yeah, Nerdia came out for it too. She wasn't here at the time. And so, a bunch of our actors flew in, and a lot of our people are either Seattle or Oregon. So people in Oregon came up, and Seattle people were lucky.
Who is your lead actress that's driving the car with the accent?
Oh, that's Noria.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think she was living in California at the time, and so she came up for the premiere.
She's
And
sorry. It really stood out.
I would like to definitely work with her again. She's
Mm,
living in Texas right now.
okay.
Um, or I would do more things with her more easily, but we talk about it. So hopefully we'll be able to work together again sometime soon.
And her name is spelled Nuria. But so this had a good reaction, a good reception.
I mean, the screening room was completely packed. It was like standing room in the back. All the actors were able to, be there and be seated. And I mean, people were just laughing, screaming, saying lines along with it, because we used some of the same lines on purpose as the
Hmm.
original film in a way, either in a humorous way or in a way where it connected characters to earlier characters. Um, and people loved it. People just loved it. And so sometimes there were lines said out loud and just like a huge applause at the end. And I was so happy to see the original actors there, and they were just, I feel like this was the premiere that they should have had back in the 60s. That
Mm.
when the original film premiered, most of the people walked out and were embarrassed, felt like they lost money on their investment, so they're probably angry. And I know the actors were very embarrassed, and some of them were horrified that
Wow.
that's what the film turned out. And I
Hmm.
felt really bad for them, so we wanted to give them something they could be proud of, that they could feel an actual part of, and trust that it was going to come out, make him look good.
Hmm.
And they did feel like that. And so it was, I don't know how to say it, but it was like a vindication of sorts or something. Like this, we were able to give the actors something that they should have had but didn't, and years later could have.
Yeah. Yeah. I like as far as talking about film as a collaborative art, I like the fact that you are really into giving everyone credit and making sure that it's not just like, even though you may, have the vision, that it's not just all about you, and that you want everyone to have credit, even if it's like going to be their only credit they ever have, it's something special to them. I mean, you can have the idea, you can set it in motion, but if you have good people working with you and bring something good out of them and they feel good about it, then that's really gratifying. So it seems like you're really, really good at that.
Well, I mean, with film, it is a collaborative process. Like, there's no way I could do everything by myself, even if it's just like the project that I was talking about that hadn't come out yet. It's called The Foul Flash, and I did everything except for what the other actors were doing and the makeup, which, like I said, Rachel Jackson took on. But even with that project, I can't do that without the actors and the makeup. I mean,
Right.
really is a collaborative project, and if you have good people on your team doing good work, that's their work up there, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and especially with Modest Returns, because it was highly collaborative. It was written by me and Rachel and Jackie. We all co-wrote it. Produced by me, Rachel, Jackie, and Joe.
Hmm.
And director of photography was Joe on his own. We all had several hats that we did. Um, like Jackie, Rachel, and I all were also in it, and um, there were so many people, so many talented people working on that. It really was collaborative. It's not, even though I was the director, it's not. I don't see it as like my movie or my project. It's our movie and our project
Yeah.
because it really was. I do a lot of work on it, but I did a fraction of the pie. I did my piece of the pie,
The
not the full
key
thing.
piece, but yeah, that's cool. Um, yeah, I enjoyed it. I rewatched it again. So where did you go from here as far as things go? I've seen some of your short films and anthologies and things like that, and those I'm sure have been good opportunities for you. There's one that really kind of I, I was puzzled with, not in a bad way. Uh, which movie was it? It was Hobo with a Trash Can, I think. And that movie didn't start out very promisingly, and then it's like as it got into each story, like some of the people directing were doing like really like kind of creepy stuff, like kind of next level stuff. And then some were just kind of doing like, the basic stuff. And when it got to yours, I thought because I wanted looking forward to seeing it because of that name Hungry Ghost, because of all the Japanese mythology and all that stuff. But that was a pretty funny thing, and I had a hard time, not a hard time, but I had a time trying to decipher what exactly the thing was, the setup. I think I figured it out, so maybe I can help others in the future. But I'm not. I mean, are we talking about like are these people your character? Well, obviously they can regenerate, and all. Are they themselves are dead, and
Mm-hmm.
they are determining the fate of other souls or
Mm-hmm.
taking the other souls, and they do it
Mm-hmm.
with the tarot cards?
They're like playing gambling games.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Who gets? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I know some people feel like my piece is like the weird, obscure one out of that anthology, and to be fair, I guess it is.
Yeah, but it
Um,
stands out. That's what's cool about it.
I didn't want to be too obvious with it because I felt like that would almost make it boring. Like if you know right away who these characters are and what they're doing, that's the whole story, and then you don't
Right.
need to watch. So I didn't really want to explain it.
Well, that's cinema. I mean, you don't need all the exposition uh, that you used to, or maybe you never needed it. But a lot of people always burdened us with lots of exposition, and really good directors now I feel like are kind of let us figure this out and collaborate and see if we're on their wavelength. So after Manos and you're working these anthologies, how do you feel like things are going with the filmmaking and what's happening with you now? You mentioned a project that you're working on.
Well, Hobo with a Trash Can, that was before Monos Returns.
Oh, okay.
And
My bad.
oh, that's okay. That one, if this will might make more sense to you. So what that was my friend Christopher, not the Christopher who was in Monos, but different Christopher and Claire, they put this project together where they gave everybody they reached out to a bunch of filmmakers, they gave everybody $1 and they gave you a prompt. And you had to figure out how to make the film with the dollar. I mean, basically, it's sweat equity is going into it, but how can you use your dollar and use sweat equity for the rest of everything that you're doing? and use the prompt. So my prompt was a styrofoam takeout container full of old Chinese noodles.
Oh.
So that was my prompt, and I had $1, and I used it to rent a room in the Paramount in Seattle, which is where I worked at the time. It was a live music venue, and they showed silent films too. They have original Wurlitzer organ, and
Oh.
they show films a couple times a year with the live organ. And so I worked there for several years and was able to rent one of the meeting rooms for $1 because I made a deal with one of the gals there who I told her about the project, and she supported it. And so when we're in that restaurant where we're playing the cards and everything, that's in the Paramount
Oh,
theater.
wow.
Yeah.
Is it like in the
So
lobby or something? Like there's a restaurant downstairs or?
it's just a meeting room, and it happened to have that
Oh, okay.
nice, wallpaper and old. I mean, it's an old building. It's from the 20s,
Oh,
and it had a good look to it. So
yeah.
that's my $1. And so all the other filmmakers, same thing. They had a prompt. Like I think there was like an apple core or something, and
Yeah.
um, and $1, and they had to figure out their short. And then the wraparound was done after all the shorts came in.
Oh, okay.
And and then they figured out how, he was Bo was interactive. That's one of the producers. Christopher played Bo the hobo.
Hmm.
he they had to figure out how he was seeing all the stories and everything and how that worked out. So that's how come that movie had, I mean, maybe had like a disjointed feel in the different types of shorts.
Yeah,
There were
first time I watched it, I did feel that way, but I didn't finish it, and not because it was bad or anything, but uh, I wasn't connecting with it completely. So anyway, when I needed to do the research again to talk to you, I watched the whole thing all the way through, and I found out that some of the stories, uh, after I paid more attention to them, where I had actually had some really cool things in them, and elements that I liked. And then I finally got your story, and then I went through it, and yeah, I think yeah, it may not cohere for everybody, but I think that's part of the absurdism of it. So maybe does it have to? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I feel like for a film that cost what, like $5 or $6,
Yeah,
tech, I think we did a pretty good job.
I'd say so. Yeah, yeah, definitely good
But
production values for that.
yeah, but since Monos returned, so I have a project that I keep trying to mount, and I keep getting somewhere with, and then something keeps happening, and I'm like, oh, it's cursed at this point. I don't even want to talk too much about it because I still want to work on this project. I'm still thinking about it and still want to
Okay.
work on this project. It's been so many years, but my heart's still with it, and I still want to finish it. So that's somewhere on the back burner.
Math. You're definitely a polymath. I'll say that. So what I wanted to ask you, this is pertinent to the channel, um, because some of our cast members and a couple of our audience are really in love with your song that we use for the end of in the show. So I wanted to ask you that period when you were doing like the bands like and all that stuff, and you were segueing away from music into film. Uh, was that the same period you recorded the Sea and the Stars?
Yeah, it was around then. I was it's hard to say. So my first band that I was talking about, where we had the large group that was difficult to sustain, we did a demo, and that, I think that's up on my Bandcamp too.
Hmm.
And Starlight is on that demo, but it's like a fuller version.
Hmm.
But I use that, or I don't feel comfortable using that commercially because it's with band members that I no longer talk to and haven't don't know how to reach out and be like, hey, do you mind if I use this music? I mean,
That's why
there's
I
not.
stopped using our previous song for the credits and wanted to get a new one. So, what did you write those songs during that period, or were they songs you'd had a while?
Both.
Oh.
There's songs that I wrote, since when I was a teenager, and songs that I've written, since. And I was always writing music, um, like voraciously, probably up until my mother passed away in 2012, and my dad passed away shortly after that. And
God, you're
I
almost the same years as mine were in 2009 and 2013. Go
yeah.
ahead.
And so you probably know, I mean, everybody that has different takes on grief or they react differently, but
Sure.
I wasn't really able to write music or play music for several years
Oh,
after that. And I feel like I'm just able to get
just
back
too
into it.
emotional for you, you think, or not?
Yeah, like from the place where it comes from in me. And I know a lot of people use music to like ease pain and things, but from that place inside where it comes from, I couldn't go there.
But like Starlight, so that song actually reminded me a lot of the kind of stuff that I was writing had written by that time. Just the stripped down, the melodic, the chords, and the lyrics. I really think are very they're pretty insightful. And so I'm gonna flatter you. So I actually find myself singing that song a lot.
Oh.
Like several of the songs reminded me of kind of shoegazing and kind of folk and kind of Nick Cave-ish at times. And but that one kind of just boiled it down to just like the melody, the lyrics, and the really nice sounding guitar. And you know, I love that. I want people to know what about that song and the album and what was like kind of going through your head at the time. And do you feel like that style of music is kind of behind you? Um, because I know the stuff you've done since is so all kinds of different genres. I mean, you've done stuff that sounds like punk and rockabilly and kind of like crazy carnival music, and I don't know. I mean, you're just like all over the map. I'm in awe, kind of.
I really don't know what, like I said, I feel like I'm starting to get back into music again. I really don't know what it's gonna look like. It's been so many years since I've done it.
See, I'm kind of
I mean,
counting the soundtrack work too as part of your ooh.
oh, right. I
You know what
feel
I'm
like
saying? Yeah.
yeah, I feel like throughout the year, like I haven't never done music. That's a little, I mean, it hasn't gone to that extreme. But for me, I haven't been working on music like I would.
Hmm.
But I appreciate the opportunity. Like I've done several songs for my friend Andrew Shearer of Gonzorific. I've done
Oh.
several for some of his different movies,
Hmm.
and I've done music for my different movies too. And a lot of that for my films have been kind of through necessity. Like I'll need some music, so I'll just write something. And it's kind of a way to make myself still be connected to music and to give myself like an opportunity to still do it in a capsulated way where um, I don't have to immerse myself in it.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think I'm finally in that place where I can become, music can become part of my life again.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's going to look like though. I mean, I really honestly don't.
I'm there too. Are there any films that you have seen recently, either that are recent films or films you just happened to see recently for the first time, uh, that you would recommend to people watching the show?
Well, I'll say the one that I recommended to you before, Your Monster. I
Hmm.
really liked that one. I feel like that's kind of a little bit of an under the radar one. It had just come out in the theaters like a month ago.
Hmm.
Um, I know a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's it's an interesting one because it's about a girl who, and it's based on some true events in the writer and director's life. A girl who was undergoing cancer treatment and she was working on a stage show with her fiance, and he basically leaves her and cuts her out of the stage show because he can't deal with her cancer. He
Mm.
doesn't want to deal with taking care of her, helping her. He just wants to kind of be free of it.
That's kind of
And
realistic, sadly. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, I mean, this did happen to her, and I feel like it's something that sometimes happens
Yeah, it
to,
does.
unfortunately. Um, but she went through a lot of changes because of that, and she had to come to terms with her anger and how that protected her. And in the story, the character comes home and to her childhood home, but she's there on her own. Her um, mother had left or was on a trip or something, and she encounters her childhood monster basically,
Mm.
and he embodies her. anger and defense of her that she doesn't know how to have,
Hmm.
or then like how, if she's supposed to have.
Hmm.
And and then it becomes a love story. She falls in love with this monster who sticks up for her basically. And I think it's really, really interesting because it does cover a lot of things that I feel like really do happen to people sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you are wronged by people, you don't know how to react. Am I supposed to get angry? Am I supposed to stick up for myself? Or am I like, is that overreacting? It's socially wrong, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, but it's also cozy. Like the movie's also very cozy. And I think purposely so. It's sweet, and the stakes aren't high for the main character, but maybe for other characters they are.
Mm.
And it's kind of feel good in a way, but it is a weird movie and it's gory at times. And I like the interplay of all of that. I thought it
That
was really,
sounds good. Yeah. Um, so is that your favorite recent one you've seen?
I think so. I mean, I
Okay.
haven't seen a ton of new movies just very recently, but
I
that's my
haven't
favorite.
either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can people find your work and get in touch with you or whatever, network with you or just tell you how much they think you're awesome and all that stuff in a non-creepy way, but I don't want to
You
give
know,
any ideas.
if anyone looks me up, Tonjia Atomic, it's Tonjia
Hmm.
Atomic, and I have you can watch my stuff mostly on YouTube.
Hmm.
I have stuff on Vimeo. There's stuff on Amazon. Um, I mean,
Amazon Prime, like that you
yeah, there's Monos Returns on Amazon Prime, but I think it's rentable as well.
okay. Okay.
And some of my other movies, I mean, they're all out. They're mostly all out there.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Either you or Tubi or I don't know where everything is too because I wasn't the producer on everything and
Yeah,
uh,
you've got 5 or 6 things with you, that you made or you're in on Tubi.
mm,
So that was very helpful to me. Um, okay, yeah, we'll put some links like to your YouTube channel and stuff in the comments, below above the comment section below the talking heads part. Um, yeah, that's great. And how this is going to be a really insane question to end with, but so how did you become Atomic? Tell us about this.
it was through my band we were thinking like should we have little cute name well I shouldn't say it that way but should we have little stage names for all of us and we
Yeah,
were like
yeah,
we don't want to be like so and so like that doesn't sound right like Johnny Ramone kind of thing that
yeah,
doesn't
punk, kind of punk. Yeah, right.
so and we used to play a lot out and I also used to get a lot of advice from the girls from the band Scream Club. They were an Olympia band and popular during that time when we were playing out and they were Cindy Wonderful and Sarah Adorable and we were like oh we have to get names too but I think I was the only one who actually picked a name and
Um,
it was Atomic and I went by that when I was in the band, and it became a thing where the name Atomic it became attached to me in some professional other ways. I started going by that for acting too.
sure.
But I would sometimes get checks written out to Tonjia Atomic, and I'd be like, how do you have that name?
Um,
Why are you writing a check under that name?" So I did legally change it because
oh, okay. Yeah, the check thing is tricky.
yeah. So I had to.
Covert's not my legal last name. Henry's my legal middle name. But yeah, I did a punk rock thing. I wanted to have a name that was like Richard Hell or Johnny Rotten, but it actually sounded like it could kind of pass for a regular name, which those couldn't. And I guess it worked. I don't know. Henry's Covert's been around 30 years now. And he's the whole legal entity, and he's all I have on the internet, which makes me feel good. But the check thing, when I did write for magazines and people started doing that, I had to go to the bank and like prove I was the same person. Uh, and it got away with it. Nowadays, you would not be able to get away with it in a bank. So it's interesting. So, but I haven't legally changed. But you have legally changed.
I have, yeah.
That's so cool.
Like I had to, but it's it's done me well because
It's a
if I
career
need
thing. Yeah.
if I needed like an ID to get into a convention, I've needed to do that before. Like here it is,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
to count checks, or yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, very cool. Very cool. Us creatives kind of reinvent ourselves periodically. Um, so I will wrap it up with you, but I wanted to say that it's been a pleasure and I appreciate you filling us in on your life, your projects, your work, and I hope everyone in the audience enjoyed this. And I also hope people will like and subscribe to the channel, like this video, share with your friends, subscribe. We need all the help we can get, but we appreciate you watching. Any last thing you want to impart to these nice people, Tanya?
I just wanted to say a little bit. I have a new anthology coming out soon where we're going into film festivals right now, but I'm really excited about it. It's me, Joe Sherlock, Christopher Barnes, both from Honest Returns, Ron Ford, who wrote I don't know if you know the movie The Fear from the 80s with the wooden face.
Yeah, vaguely.
Ron Ford, and he's done Hollywood Mortuary and a bunch of other things. And Tim Ritter, of The
I
Truth
know
of
he
Dare.
is. Yeah.
And we have an anthology coming out called A Stab at Love, and Andrew Shearer, too, from Gonzerfic, A Stab at Love.
Okay. Sounds very good. When will that be out, you think?
I don't know because we're doing a festival circuit next year.
Okay.
So maybe at the end of next year.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll be able to keep us updated. All right. Well, that's excellent. So you guys look for her stuff and thanks for watching and we'll be back soon with other wonderful material. Have a good evening.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.